Who would have believed it? That one day a small, weird little game from a relatively unknown Japanese studio would one day become the major launch title for a new PlayStation console and usher in the next generation of gaming. That this game is the biggest launch day release for the PS5 is either a massive kudos to the 10-year-old game or an indictment of the current state of next generation gaming. The answer, of course, is that it's both. The fantastic remake got me thinking, what else would I like to see sparkle with the boost of cutting-edge hardware? And you know what that means? It's list time. I've been playing the Demon's Souls remake and my gosh is it good. It's like finding a wad of cash on the streets, petting a cute dog, and hitting a crack pipe all at the same time. Bluepoint Games have smashed it out of the park with their gorgeous remake, taking the still great foundational gameplay and level design of the cult classic and propping them up on beautiful new visuals, silky smooth frame rates, new animations, the lot. It's like they've done the opposite of polishing a turd. They've polished gold, if you can do that, or they've turned gold into platinum. Is that more valuable than gold? Wait, what's better than gold? Anyway, it got me thinking, what games do I feel deserve a remake? Which games deserve to be re-released with today's technology and enjoyed by audiences new and old? I took these incoherent ramblings and I compiled this list. So in no particular order, let's get to it. Number 1, Metal Gear Solid. An obvious choice, but one that is always worth mentioning. Despite Kojima splitting from Konami, and the possibility of him ever working with them on a new Metal Gear game seems about as likely as Donald Trump and Joe Biden working together on a new brand of Viagra, it's still nice to wonder what Kojima, or Bluepoint Games, or any other similar company could do with the older Metal Gear games. Metal Gear Solid was a revelation in its time, a game that impacted many people with its bizarre and intriguing story, its stealth action gameplay, and a cast of characters that would go on to lay the foundations of one of the most beloved and influential franchises in the industry. Imagine the original play out in the Fox engine, the game engine used to render Metal Gear 5's large, stunning locations and silky smooth frame rates. The Psycho Mantis boss fight would take on a whole new life if played out in 60 FPS. Although, I'm not sure how that particular section would play out on modern consoles, since it involved breaking the fourth wall and having the player take out memory cards from their PlayStation 1. Whatever, I'll happily unscrew my SSD out of my PS5 if it means beating that. MGS's themes of nuclear disarmament, the costs of war, and unstable leaders leading armed insurrections under the guise of liberty are themes that are just relevant enough for today's world, and it would do well to re-experience a 20-year-old game that called so much of it. Plus, while graphics aren't everything, iconic moments like Grey Fox's death would open up old wounds and create fresh ones for a whole new generation of gamers, if rendered with fancy ray tracing and all the bells and whistles. An iconic game reborn. Number 2, Spec Ops The Line. Spec Ops The Line came out of nowhere back in 2011. Appearing on the surface to be a run-of-the-mill military shooter. You know, the kind of thing that offers absolutely no insight or deeper commentary on the horrors of war, and the time spent developing it might have been better spent, well, developing a game that had made insight and commentary on the horrors of war. From the outset, it seemed to contain totally generic third-person gameplay with a totally generic third-person narrative. Only one of those things turned out to be true. Can you guess which one? Yes, it turns out that Spec Ops The Line is basically video games' Heart of Darkness, taking cues from that source material and Francis Ford Coppola's classic film Apocalypse Now, and being the most visceral, authentic take on how terrible war really is. The story follows a group of American soldiers on a rescue mission in the Middle East that quickly turns into a vicious fight for survival. Through its gameplay, it makes the player really question who the heroes are, and if there even are any in today's bloody conflicts. With the plot's twists and turns questioning what it means to take a life and what it does to the participants, this is a narrative that most certainly deserves a current generation upgrade. And remember what I said earlier about that generic third-person gameplay? Yeah? Well, that's the only downside to Spec Ops. While it integrates many of its story beats nicely into the player's actions, mechanically the game could do with a lot more imagination and variety. With a few tweaks from a caring developer, Spec Ops could really be something special in this new generation crop of games. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. So this is something of a personal choice, and perhaps not everyone will agree with me, but let me try and convince you why this game should be restored for a new generation. It's because it's great. Zelda games rarely get a remake, and everyone and their mum has a favorite installment that they would like to see remastered or remade. Many say A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, or even Wind Waker deserve to be recreated, but my personal choice would be Twilight Princess. Maybe because it was the first Zelda game I played, or because it was the first game I played on Christmas Day 2006, when I unwrapped my brand new Nintendo Wii. Nostalgia is a powerful thing, as is one's first experience with any art form, and it creates a very personal bias towards those experiences. With that being said, I believe Twilight Princess was an amazing piece of work that maintained the series' classic elements while flipping expectations on their head to create an interesting take on the story. It had a sassy and interesting companion in Midna, a creepy original villain in Zant, and it eventually ties it all together with the classic Zelda, Link, Ganon trifecta. It was the first major release to integrate motion controls, and its graphic and art style still holds up today. The crazy thing is, I might get my wish, in a way, since there are rumors floating around that the next installment in the series, Breath of the Wild 2, might feature the Twilight Realm in some way. So maybe Nintendo misses this era in Zelda's history just as much as I do. 4. The Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. Now, this one is totally cheating, actually, because Ubisoft are actually remaking Sands of Time and it's due to be released this year. Now, I had actually forgotten that that was happening when writing this list. However, it's a great excuse to get hyped for the remake and remind ourselves why we love the Sands of Time so much. Prince of Persia Sands of Time is one of those rare games that actually deserve to be called seminal, or revolutionary, or inspiring. The free-running mechanics, the combat, and the use of time control had not been seen before, and it transformed the landscape for the third and first-person action game genre. It told a simple but emotional story of betrayal, adversity, and coming of age. The kind of stuff Disney has built a multi-billion-dollar empire off of. It spawned sequels that were good in their own way and tried to add things to the formula with each installment, with varying degrees of success. Who could forget that the teenage wet dream that was Warriors Within, with its shredding guitars, decapitation animations, and topless women. Nothing can compare, however, to the original, which took the dreamy atmosphere of the Arabian Nights, built around it one of the greatest action games ever made. We'll have to wait and see what Ubisoft does with the remake, but so far the reception from the promotional material has been less than positive. The remake seems to have graphics rendered somewhere around the PS3 era, and to my and many other fans' eyes, it looks pretty generic and uninspired. The art style seems bland and it just looks boring. But with that being said, we stay hopeful. Ubisoft sometimes hits and sometimes misses, and I hope that with a classic like this, all they'll do is hit. 5. Def Jam Vendetta. Okay, so this entry is kind of cheating as well, because when I'm talking about remaking Def Jam Vendetta, I'm not really talking about remaking Def Jam Vendetta. Def Jam and its sequels were fun games that really ran with the idea of putting real-life rappers into crazy Fast and Furious style plots and having them face off against each other in the ring. It was great for the player to get to face off against DMX and Ludacris and see all these stars smash up against each other in the most ridiculous way possible. But pop culture moves quick, and we're in a new era of music. And what I think might be fun is taking the framework that Def Jam set out and putting it into the modern day. You could have Machine Gun Kelly and Eminem face off against each other, and then the winner gets to take on Nicki Minaj, and she jumps in the ring and smashes a high heel through Takeshi 6ix9ine's throat, while Billie Eilish watches over all of them as the mastermind of an evil plot, and you think the final boss takes place against you and J. Cole, but really it was Dre all along. All that rendered in the state-of-the-art ray tracing. Lovely. And that's it for this take on what games I think should be remade for all those shiny next-gen consoles, and on PC. Hopefully one day everyone can get a next-gen console and play some of these hypothetical games. But while all the consoles exist solely in a scalper's basement, and these games exist solely in my mind, try to pass the time by checking out more vids from Noodleshot. Like, subscribe, click the bell, and we'll see you next time. Presenter face, presenter face, presenter face.
When you're ready.
I just want to go home.